Hello, everybody. Welcome to this day of Elul, which is what, the 13th day of Elul? I want to say 13th. I think that's right. Um, Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this ancient Ashkenazi practice called Feldmestern. And we may have talked about this in the past, but it's in Eastern Europe for many, many centuries. Uh, Ancient women in these shtetls would serve their communities as ritualists and religious leaders. They had they spoke Yiddish, and they had their own little books called techinas, which are like prayers, and they would lead mostly other women, but they would do a variety of rituals around their community. And one of those rituals is called Feldmestern, and it means grave measuring or cemetery measuring. And what they would do is a pair of women or a group of women would go to a cemetery and they would measure either the entire cemetery or some of the graves. Sometimes they were hired by people to measure graves of loved ones if they wanted to connect specifically with those loved ones, or to honor them in terms of making candles with those threads that then they would light during yahrzeits or during high holidays. In case of a severe illness or a very difficult childbirth, they would sometimes measure the entire cemetery by taking a thread and walking around with it. And this went on for centuries, measuring these wicks that were then made into candles. And it kind of fell off in the early 20th century, but there's a study in 1906 by an anthropologist that reveals that certain shtetls continued to use Feldmestern. And I can show you a picture, I think, of this photograph from, I think it's 1906, of these women in the shtetl with the thread. You can see one of them is holding a bowl and a spool of yarn, and the other one is running it through her hands, and then a third one is winding it up. So it's this really ancient practice, and it was often done in the month of Elul in order to prepare for the high holidays, because they would use the wicks then between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to make candles, like giant candles that would be burned all day long on Yom Kippur. So that is one of these ancient rituals that we wanted to talk about today. And Diane will tell us why.
And because yesterday I went to a very special opening of the Jewish cemetery here in Siena, which, if you haven't seen my presentation from Elul 12, you'll maybe want to go look at that. And I knew I was going to be going, and I said, well, we can do the cemetery measuring. And I suppose I could have gone and bought a ball of string, but things have been really crazy here. It was sort of last minute. And I said, I have string. I don't have a very long piece of string. I can't measure a whole grave, but I will see what fits my piece of string, which is an interesting way to kind of do this. I was going to measure something. And so Andreen sent me the directions. There's a prayer in Yiddish, which I didn't say, but what it said you should do is, talk to the person if you know them. If you don't know them, tell them who you are and why you're there. And then you're sort of asking them to help you and aid you with a problem or help you with difficulties in life. And I don't really have a problem, so I wasn't thinking in that zone. And I knew I was going to have to measure a headstone because I didn't have enough for a whole grave. And I thought, I'll see as I wander around what calls to me. And so I came across the headstone of a woman here. And so there's two pictures side by side here. On the left is her stone, and on the right is me measuring around the top. My string was exactly the right size to measure around the top of it. And what it says on the stone is, it says Anna Kabibe, the widow of Levi. So she married a Levi. And then this is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen written on a grave, actually. And none of the other graves had anything like this. Everybody had just their names and their dates. An example of domestic virtue. drawing force from her faith in God to nobly support the misfortunes of the travails of her life. And then 1828 to 1898. And I thought, this is my person. She was an example of domestic virtue, and clearly had some suffering in her life, I think, or they wouldn't have written that on the stone. And then when I pulled out my string, which is, let's see, I'm gonna take us off this share now. So this is my string, and the way you do it is you measure around, and then you tie it where the measuring was to show the distance, and that's, you can see that I have that much string left. This was exactly the size of my string. So yeah, it was quite wonderful. And I said to her, Anna, I told her who I was and that I was visiting, and that I was gonna just take this measurement, and I kind of wished her well. I actually got even a little emotional just talking about it. I don't exactly know why. There's some deep connection. Maybe people in my family used to do this. I don't know. But it was incredibly emotional and meaningful to me to do this. So that was very, very cool that it just happened to come up during the month of Elul. We had this cemetery visit. So I will be taking this home. I'm leaving Italy tomorrow. I'll be coming to Portland, and we're going to make some candles with this wick.
Wonderful.
We also have string where we last year measured my parents' graves in LA, so we haven't made candles out of those yet.
We need to make candles this year. We're gonna do it. Maybe Dominic will help too.
Yeah, you want to help make us candles? That'd be fun. We dip it in wax. That'd be really cool.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do some shofar.
Good. Tikiya. Shivarim Trua. Yeah.
Tikiya. Shvarim. Tikiya.
Tikiya. Trua. Tikiya.
Tikiya. Shivarim Trua. Tikiya.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good flight.
I will.